Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks very much for having me on to have a talk. And also thank Karen for all the one. I know you've had a couple of really good ones and some other good ones coming up. So thanks very much for organising all that, and thanks for tuning in to listen to everybody. As Karen said, that's what I'm gonna talk about. Just by way of introduction, I'm just trying to get this working. Hang on. Yeah, by way of introduction, as Karen said, I used to be in the Navy and retired in 2014 to get a bit more diving in. And I think the new office is a little bit better than a nuclear submarine or a tent in Afghanistan, frankly. Um, I own and run Underworld with my wife Claire. We're a little dive centre in Mexico, kind of specialising in group and club trips. So we've got accommodation on site as well. Balanced with quite a lot of dog rescue, and obviously have a really nice little facility there for clubs and social and things for people to come out. We also run Cave Camp, which I know some of you, looking at the names, I know some of you have been to. That's an annual event that brings together some explorers and divers and cave instructors from all over the world for 2 weeks of social events and courses and workshops. Also some nice goodie bags and freebies. And we unfortunately, for fairly obvious COVID-related reasons, we've had to postpone the 20 event until 2021, but really looking forward to getting back into that once we all open up again next year. And also, as you can see on the bottom there, supported by some really cool people within the dive industry, which we're really grateful for. So that's where I'm talking to you from, Tulum, Mexico. It's about an hour and a half south of Cancun. Quite a funny little... up until a few years ago, it was kind of small village. It's growing quite a lot, but it's still got quite a hippie, laid-back sort of vibe. But the reason why we're here is that's all the cenote entrances that are within, I said, about a 10-kilometre radius of where I'm sitting. We've got 8 of the 10 biggest underwater caves in the world, and I only have to almost go out the door, and you can find a cave system. In the last couple of months, all of the main commercial cenotes have been shut because of the pandemic. But a lot of those just placed out in the jungle. We can just drive out into the jungle, park by the side of the road, and then flop in. One of the ones we've been diving quite a lot. It's still being explored, and there's at least 10 kilometres of passage already, and it's just a little hole by the side of the road. So we've got so much cave here. It's ridiculous, really. One of the nice things about Mexico is it's really good for training. We have got so much cave. It's also generally quite nice and shallow and warm, so logistics is quite easy. We don't have to go too far to find a cave, and it's quite pleasant for training. Very, very good visibility. Also, as you can see from the picture, it's pretty highly decorated. That's what I'm going to speak about. Why would any sane person cave dive? I was going to call it cave diving WTF, but I didn't think I was young and cool enough to get away with that. The main sort of attraction, I think, of a lot of this is some of the photographs that we're going to use to illustrate it. A lot of them from my friend Tom St. George. You might, if you've done any sort of searches on the internet or looked at cave diving on Facebook, you'll see a lot of Tom's photography. He's an incredibly talented photographer. But also you can see a long list of people at the bottom who've also who've kindly let me use their photographs for this talk. Jason Brown, really good guy. Sammy and Phil, obviously very well-known cave explorers and good friends, and there's a lot of people down there. So the reason why I think this is quite a nice talk is that there's some beautiful pictures, and I'm very grateful to the photographers for allowing us to use those images. So when most people think about cave diving, they might think about a dodgy movie they might have seen. They might think about the incredible rescue from back in 2018. They might have a perception that all cave diving is like this, or maybe like this. And whilst aspects of all that could be true to some extent, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's some really, really beautiful places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, firstly, some of the reasons why I cave dive, and maybe some other good reasons to cave dive. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges and the downsides, and maybe some of the reasons you might not want to think about cave diving. There's a lot of sort of misconceptions out there and some questions that we get asked. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to cover, if I haven't completely put you off, how you might go about getting cave trained, and how cave training kind of works, and how you could go about that. So that's what we're going to cover. So the main reason I think I cave dive is the beauty. Stuff like this is just incredible. And I've been pretty lucky in my diving career to have dived a military expert to one of the more remote islands in the South Pacific that took us 3 days to get there, just in the Pitcairn group, which was just stunningly first people to ever dive it. Perfect coral reef. Dive the Prince of Wales and the Repulse, so probably some of the best wrecks in the world before they got trashed. But some of the stuff in caves just blows that away. It's so beautiful. So I'm going to share some of my favourite places. This is a system called Nahochna Cheech, which I know Karen's been there. Karen's dived there. Just an incredibly beautiful place. Average depth of about 5.5 meters. So you can get a really, really nice long dive in here, and it is just stunning. It's part of the Sakak-Tun cave system, which is the longest cave system in the world, at just over 360 kilometers in length. At the moment, it's still going, and some exploration going on. Obviously, whilst no one else is doing anything else, there's been quite a bit of exploration being done this year. This is Sistema Naitucha, another favourite. It's part of Kosh Bao, which is the 3rd biggest system in the world, and hopefully that's going to get connected. They're not too far away, actually, from connecting that to Sakak-Tun, which would form the biggest cave system in the world, bar none. At the moment, the longest system is a place called Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, but that's a mixture of flooded cave and dry cave. We've got 8 of the 10 biggest, longest underwater caves, but if we connect Kosh Bao to Sakak-Tun, that will be the longest cave in the world, full stop. There won't be any other sort of dry caves that touch it, so that's pretty exciting. This is another sort of favourite place called Minotauro. Got an amazing halocline here, just a perfect halocline right in the middle of the passage. Just a fantastic place. Halocline is like a boundary between the fresh and salt water layer, and you can get some amazing effects, and it's quite sort of weird that you think you can see some water below you, but you're in water, so it plays with your head a bit, but it's a really beautiful effect. This is another place, Dos Ocos Cavern, which probably not the most beautiful. It's still pretty stunning, but the nice thing about this is that anyone who is a qualified diver can go here with a guide. I've probably dived this a few hundred times, so it's become a little bit familiar. But it was the first overhead dive I did in Mexico, so it has got quite a special place. It's also the place that I something for everyone. It's got a great cavern area, so anyone can dive there. It's got some deep sections that go down to about 120 meters, and it's got some stunning shallow caves. Guys, can you still see the pictures? I just had a little message flash up that said my internet was a bit unstable.
Yeah, we can still see the pictures. You disappear every now and again, Lanny. But the pictures are staying up.
The beautiful caves. The beautiful caves are probably the main reason I cave dive. The other thing that's really cool is the challenge. Planning and executing fairly complex dives safely is really, really satisfying. It's certainly not an environment you want to skimp on your planning, because obviously you can't ascend straight to the surface. So your gas planning, your navigational planning, your team work and planning has got to be really, really, really top notch. But actually getting that right and going a long way and seeing some beautiful stuff like this on the way can just give you such a real sense of achievement. And I think some of the biggest smiles I've seen in diving are someone sort of surfacing for the first time, having completed a fairly complex sort of multi-stage, multi-scooter dive. It's just really, really cool. So another nice thing about cave diving is exclusivity. So cave divers tend to go to places that few other people have seen. That could even include going to somewhere that no one else has seen, which would be another good reason to cave dive, which should be exploration, to actually go and find new places. I think most divers have got some sort of exploration instinct, so we all want to go and see cool places for the first time, and that's you can really genuinely sort of push the boundaries of that in cave diving. Science, that's another good reason to cave dive. Groups like the WKPP, you can see here in Florida, or the Mexico Cave Exploration Project down here, contribute a great deal to our knowledge of important underwater water resources. So a lot of the drinking water from North Florida comes from the springs. So it's important to know, where they flow from, to certainly here in Mexico, the effect of pollution, the effect of development. They're putting up new hotels and things, and divers can actually say, look, you're getting your water from here, so we need to be careful about how we manage that water resource. So really important there. That links quite nicely into conservation. Another good reason to cave dive. We've got some friends who've got a little project called Somos Los Cenotes, which is doing exactly that, trying to basically increase awareness of how important these water resources are, so that developments are done in a much more sympathetic way. And you can check them out on Facebook. They're an environmental advocacy group, basically, and they do some really important work. Archaeology, flooded caves are an amazing repository of bones and all sorts of other things. Here in Mexico, we often see pots that have been left as a sacrifice to the Xibalba, the god of the underworld. This one here is a photo from the Hoyo Negro project. This basically found a skull of Naya, who was a young Mayan woman who died 12,000 years ago. And it completely changed the whole understanding of human migration in North America. This is a really cool documentary on PBS Nova that you can check out, and it talks about that. And the dive on the previous photo, Alex, I'm going to be seeing this evening for a line committee meeting, actually, was the lead diver on that, and his story is just incredible. He also very kindly gave a presentation, I think 2 cave camps to go on the whole project. So that's a really interesting thing. So archaeology mapping is another good one. Actually, as part of exploration, you haven't really been there until you've actually explored it. So you can quite a complex skill, but actually learning to accurately map an underwater cave can be really, really cool. Actually translating that survey data you've collected to a beautiful 2-dimensional map is amazing. This is a map of a cave called Maya Blue, which I've dived many hundreds of times, but I still love the place and I love the map. This is actually a map by Jim Koch, who's the main force behind the Quintana Roo Speleological Society, and I think these are kind of works of art in their own right. Really, I used to have a lot of these on my walls back in the UK before we moved out here. Mapping can be really good fun. So another reason to cave dive, transferable skills. So the hallmark of a good cave diver is very, very good sort of buoyancy and trim. And although the cave training can be quite demanding, the skills that you actually pick up can transfer really, really well to all diving environments. In terms of your teamwork, communication, being calm, and being able to put yourself anywhere in the water column you want to be. So really important there. As I said, awareness and teamwork. Actually, I found that even very experienced divers or recreation instructors one of the aspects of cave training they actually struggle with is the sort of teamwork. So the fact you've gone through that and are so hyper aware of the position of your team and consequences of any failures just makes you a much better and safer diver. Another reason to cave dive, photography. Obviously all of these images had to come from somewhere, and although it's a very challenging environment in which to take photos, because obviously it's completely dark, some of the results you can get are extraordinary. This is another one from Tom, and it can actually, I've heard it described as painting with light. So the position of your either your video lights or your strobes is so important and you can get some really cool results with a bit of application and practice.
Lanny, don't you want to just
hello?
connection on your speakers or on your earphones there? I think you might have a bit of a loose connection. It's making quite a noise, just where it plugs in. Yeah. I can't hear you at all now. No, dead. Nothing.
What about now?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, just speak a bit.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll try not to move. That's is that okay? Okay, so we're just talking about the one of the other reasons to cave dive, which is photography. Did you miss much? Do you want me to recap anything, or?
No, we didn't miss much.
Okay, cool. And finally, I was in two minds to whether to put this in, but teaching is another certainly one of the main reasons that I cave dive. It's incredibly satisfying to see someone who is a safe, conscientious, team-oriented, environmentally conscious cave diver, and being responsible for their training. I just get a huge kick out of that. That's another reason for cave diving. So that's what we've those are the sort of reasons that I can think of for reasons to actually cave dive. And although sort of swimming into a flooded subterranean tube is not really could be described as not sort of act of a rational or sane person, there are a lot of reasons why it's really satisfying, really challenging, and you get to see some cool stuff. So that's some of the reasons to cave dive. There are also quite a few reasons why it might not be a great idea. It's certainly not for everybody. You do have to be quite disciplined. You do have to sort of focus on your awareness, get your skills up to a sufficient standard that you can be a safe teammate, and also that you don't cause any environmental damage to the cave. It's not a place to. Although most cave diving is pretty safe, if you do get it wrong, the consequences can be fairly tragic. So if you lose concentration, or you haven't got an adequate plan in place, or have trained sufficiently to make sure that you can cope with anything going wrong, then obviously you can have some fairly unpleasant outcomes, and a couple of sort of well-known cave diving fatalities here. Including, if you haven't seen the Diving into the Unknown movie with our friend Sammy, that's an incredible story of sort of people going back to a very, very challenging environment to do a body recovery. Really, really great story. Okay, so now I'm just going to talk about some of the frequently asked questions, some of the misconceptions that we often get asked as a cave diver talking to either sort of non-divers or recreational divers. So it's all cave diving small and wriggly. What do you reckon, Karen? I mean, most of this, I know you're not. I'm not a huge fan of the wriggly stuff. I know that you're not really either. I don't mind it occasionally, but absolutely not. It's entirely possible to go through your whole cave diving career and not go anywhere smaller than a sort of room-sized passage. So definitely not sort of all small and wriggly. Are all cave divers thrill-seeking lunatics? Well, pretty much no. I mean, an uneventful cave dive is a good thing. If nothing goes wrong and you plan what you're going to do and it all goes exactly as you've planned, then that's a good cave dive. And for that reason, most cave divers tend to be a little bit more measured and a little bit more sort of calm, and not sort of trying to go and do things at 100 miles an hour with their hair on fire. Meticulous planning and a humble and reflective approach is much, much better than something driven by ego. So you sometimes get cave diving gets described as an extreme sport, but it's definitely very different from something like sort of base jumping or some of the other more sort of adrenaline fueled sports. Get asked this quite a lot. Can you see any fish? It's not so much about the fish as about the beautiful speleotherms, the beautiful formations you can see. You do sometimes see some fish. Those tetras swimming around in the open water will sometimes follow in. You can see blind cavefish. That can be quite cool. These little tiny blind fish that are way, way back. Little isopods. So you do see quite a bit of life, but it's more about the formations and the sort of challenge of the dive itself. What's guided cavern diving? This is quite a big part of the industry here in Mexico. It basically involves recreational divers being taken into a cavern in a controlled, measured way to let them experience the overhead. Generally, it's pretty safe, but you think you have to sort of go with a reputable guide. I do see some fairly horrendous things when we're up and running, being done in the caverns here in Mexico. But if you do it with small numbers, I tend to insist on a maximum of 3 to 1, although the industry standard is 4. And do it in with a reputable organisation. It's perfectly safe. It tends to be 40 to 60 meters from daylight, and you've always got a trained cave diver, fully equipped, plenty of gas with you. We also insist on someone having at least 200 cave dives post certification. Pretty much every cabin guide we use is also a cave instructor, so we sort of put that extra layer of safety in there as well. But it can be a really great way to kind of have a look and see if you like being in the overhead before you want to sort of commit to something a bit more full on, like cave training. There's another sort of fairly common misconception that you have to dive side mount in caves. Side mount's increasingly popular. I think I've probably taught 50-50 back mount, side mount cave courses. It very much depends on the diver. So if you're a regular side mount diver already, it makes perfect sense to dive side mount. If you are wanting to go to small wriggly places, then again, side mount's probably the best thing to do. If you're also want to be doing some sort of deep wrecks and more vertical diving, and you're used to diving back mount, then back mount's the perfect sort of tool for cave diving for you. The nice thing about side mount is you've got sort of built-in redundancy. You don't have to sort of reach back with your valves if you're not as flexible. But I've got a fairly bad, I had quite a bad back injury a few years ago. I'm still very happy to reach my valves in back mount. Down to the side mount is that the task loading is a little bit greater. It can be a little bit more fiddly to actually get the equipment adjusted. But there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages of both back mount and side mount configuration. And generally, we advise people to do what they're most comfortable with. Certainly, there's quite a lot to be covered on the cave course. We'll see in a second. But trying to learn a new configuration at the same time makes things a little bit more difficult. So, if we're not completely put you off, we're going to talk a little bit about cave training and how it works. I should point out that I'm talking about the sort of Mexico, Florida, sort of France style of diving. There's another sort of discipline of sump diving, which is a related sort of sport. There's a bit of crossover, but is very, very, very different in terms of techniques. And how I'd normally describe it is that sump diving, like the cave diving group in the UK would practice, is dry cavers using diving techniques to further their exploration, whereas the cave diving that we're talking about sort of started up in the sort of 50s and 60s in Florida and sort of spread elsewhere. It's more about divers who happen to be diving in a cave. There are some sort of similarities and some crossovers, and people do both, but they're quite different in terms of training programs and the end result. Really, there's no sort of in the sort of diving that I'm talking about. There doesn't tend to be any dry caving or dragging equipment through muddy sumps to get to your dive site. So cave diving has got a big.
Oh, we seem to have lost you again there, Lanny. Just hang on and wait for his internet to pick up again. No. We seem to have lost him. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get him back.
Johnny.
Guys, please mute your microphones. No. Let me just message him. I seem to have lost him completely on here. There we go, he's back. Let me just admit him quickly. Okay, welcome back, Lenny. We're not the only country with internet problems.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hey, welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. I think it was probably related to jungle internet here in Mexico. Can you say everything again? Is that working?
That's correct. Don't you want to go back to the previous slide because we missed a lot of the talking on the previous slide?
Okay, cool. So if I do, I see someone's got a nice glass of wine there. That's excellent. I'd join you, but it's only 11:30 in the morning. Okay, so is that the one? Is that what we got to?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. So what I was just basically saying is that there are two very different disciplines within cave diving. There's the sort of dry cavers using cave diving techniques to further their dry cave exploration, which is a sump diving sort of thing that the cave diving group in the UK and elsewhere do. We're more talking about the Florida style that sort of started in the 60s and 50s, 60s, 70s in Florida and sort of spread to Mexico, France, South Africa, elsewhere. But that's more about divers who happen to be diving in caves. There's quite a lot of crossover between the two, but we're more talking about the sort of diving in caves in the bigger passages. I mean, I don't often find myself crawling through mud and dragging my equipment to get to the start of the dive, which is what the sump diving guys tend to do all the time. So there's quite a large psychological component to most cave training, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gareth Locke's work. He's put up a lot of free content at the moment on humandiver.com. There's all sorts of really cool stuff you can get into. That movie, If Only, came out last month, and that's a sort of examination of the Brian Buggy accident just over a year ago, and talks about the reasons why that actually happened. And it's incredibly useful for all divers, and we do strongly recommend that you get a bit of human factors training before you sort of start thinking about cave or advanced diving. He's come on. He's talking in a couple of weeks, actually, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, next week is Gary, and then it's Gareth after that.
Yeah, no, that'll be amazing. I mean, Gareth's a really, we go back a long way, and he's a really, really good guy, very engaging, and he's done some amazing work. And much as it pains me to say nice things about someone who used to be in the Royal Air Force, he's a really good guy. So prerequisites for cave training. Agency standards normally are about 30 dives or so. I normally say about 100 dives is a good indicator. The important thing is having good solid buoyancy and trim and being really familiar in the equipment that you're going to be doing the course in, whether that's back mount or side mount. You need to be pretty familiar with how that works and be able to dive that without thinking about it. A good sort of rule of thumb is being able to do a valve drill and S drill in shallow water whilst keeping position on the line. A course like Performance Diver, I know this is mainly raid audience, so that's a really good way to get into it. Or other agency courses like Intro Tech, Essentials, Fundamentals. Some sort of course that just gets your diving up to a good standard is a really, really good way to sort of go into cave diving and get the most out of it. Because there is a lot to learn on a cave class, and you really need things like your buoyancy and your propulsion just to kind of be happening in the background without you thinking about it. So these are the common agencies that deliver cave training. Obviously, there's a largely raid audience, and the raid cave 1 and cave 2 class are really good solid programs, which I very much enjoy teaching. A whole bunch of options out there, and I tend to say at this level that your instructor tends to be a bit more important than the agency. You're going to be hanging out together and doing some quite emotional stuff, so it's quite important that you get someone that you get on with and whose style of teaching and your style of learning sort of complements each other. So that's really quite important. So what we cover on a cave class tends to be split up into 2 levels. Cave 1 for raid or GUE, and cave 2 or intro cave and full cave for other agencies. At the cave 1 level, you tend to sort of cover your initial critical cave skills. Tends to be limited to mainline, or its navigation tends to be a little bit limited. I know raid, we're just getting a bit of clarity on how much navigation is allowed at the cave 1 level. And again, with raid, you can actually do thirds at the cave 1 level. But things like there's no restrictions, you don't go into small passage. Certainly for me, I tend to insist on having a decent air gap between the courses. So once someone's done an intro class or a cave 1 class, we send them away and say, go and get 20 or so dives just to consolidate your experience. And it's also nice to have some fun without some idiot with a blindfold and a bubble gum bothering you. You can actually go and enjoy the caves. And then once you're happy and you're pretty confident in your general ability to operate in the cave, you then go on to do full cave or cave 2, which gives you much more penetration up to the full thirds, a bit more complex navigation, and not limiting you the number of jumps, etc. you can take. So generally 5 to 6 days for each course, so it's quite a long training process. But for obvious reasons, the consequence of getting stuff wrong can be fairly severe. That's what we tend to cover on a cave class. So everything from a little bit of a review of the buoyancy and trim, that should be in place already, but line lane communications, a lot of emergency procedures. So we're tending to build up to the worst case scenario, which is having a gas failure and not being able to see from your furthest point of penetration. So we tend to get people swimming out in touch contact, sharing gas from quite a long way back, and then a little bit further on the more advanced courses. And there's a lot of theory topics as well, accident analysis being a big part of that, and making sure that you understand how previous accidents have taken place and making sure that you don't sort of fall into the same traps. Once you've done your full cave 2 class and got a little bit of experience, then you can go on to do other training. CCR, although you can do your basic cave training in rebreather if you're already a rebreather diver. But you can really sort of start extending your range by taking more cylinders, doing a multi-stage course, taking a scooter into the cave. You can see things can happen quite quickly with that, and cave survey, which we talked a bit about before. So the benefit to all this sort of hard work is that you can go and see some really cool stuff like this, which sort of brings us quite nicely back round to the reason why most of us cave dive in the first place. Is you go and see some really beautiful places like this, or like this. That's Julo, one of my favourite caves again, and another nice picture from Tom. So that's what we've covered. Talked about why any sane person would cave dive, with some reasons and downsides. Hopefully I've dispelled some of the misconceptions and talked a bit about how cave training works. Just like to reiterate my thanks to the good friends who've gone to the trouble of taking some beautiful pictures and allowed me to use them, particularly Tom St. George and the other guys you can see there. If you want to know any more, that's our website for both Underworld and Cave Camp. As I said, Underworld's open all year, so once all this coronavirus nonsense finishes, then lovely to see another. We do have quite a few groups coming out from South Africa, so it's always nice to see you guys, as long as you promise not to mention the Rugby World Cup. And it'd be lovely to see you again. A little trailer for next week. Gary Dallas talking about the psyche of an underwater explorer. Gary's a good friend of ours, is one of our cave camp instructors. Sort of been here for every cave camp and is also out here teaching quite a lot. You can see that's who's that on the side there? Looks a bit like Karen. And that's Steve Lewis as well, who's the raid director of training, who's another one of our cave camp instructors. But Gary's does a lot of diving in France and Spain, as well as coming out here and some stuff in Florida. So that'll be a really interesting talk. Gary's probably one of the pioneers of side mount diving, certainly very well known in the UK and worldwide as Side Mount Bob, and sort of specialises in getting people looking really good in side mount and then taking them on sort of cave and tech diving as well. So Gary's a really personal, engaging guy and a raid instructor trainer. So that'll be a great talk, which is at the same time next week. So finally, I don't know how we're going to work this, Karen. If people would like to unmute, very happy to take any questions, or if you're not sure about anything that we've covered, or just any sort of diving questions, very happy to take those.
Okay, so Lanny, the way we're going to do this, the guys have been typing questions already into the chat, so I'll read the questions out and you can just answer them, so you don't have to worry about trying to keep your place. I'll do that for you. You happy with that?
Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, great. No.
Right, from Tanya. Lanny, I see most divers wear dry suits. Is this because of the cold, or rather protection, or time spent in the water?
So I think it's probably, when I first came out here, not many people were diving dry in Mexico, so we always kind of did. For me, cold is one thing. So if I'm teaching a cave class, I might spend sort of 6 hours or so in the water, and even if you're very, very warm-blooded, it does get a little bit cold after so long. It also allows you to have a pee without smelling like a multi-story car park, which is nice. And sort of slightly counterintuitively, although it can be quite hot here, I tend to find it more comfortable to quickly jump in a dry suit and then jump in the water, rather than sort of struggling into a wetsuit. I actually find it they're easier to get on because they just sort of slide on a little bit, sort of less tight. So I tend to find it more comfortable for those reasons as well. So that's really the reason why we do it: long exposures, peeability, and comfort.
Okay, from Sonia Welsh, what is your most constricted cave dive and what is the length of it? Is this the cenote? She was asking, is this cenote or is it another part of a cave system with that one picture you had with the guys coming out of a cave dive into the cenote? I can't remember which system it was now.
Oh, was that Dos Cocos, just the cavern dive, or the...
Yes.
So what, I didn't get the question, thanks for the question. What was the...
So, she wants to know, is that a cenote or is it another cave system that picture was taken in?
Okay, no, so yeah, a cenote comes from the Mayan word zenot, which means sacred well. And all it is just a the geological term is a karst window. So all a cenote is just a hole in the limestone that has got water underneath it. Some of them are just a hole and don't go anywhere. A lot of them are connected to cave systems. For that Dos Ocos one, that's part of Sistema Sakak Tun, and there's over 500 or 600 cenotes that are connected to that system. And actually, both of those are in the Dos Ocos, which means two eyes in Spanish. There are two cenotes, two relatively big openings, very, very close to each other, the eastern and the western eye. So it's only about 30 meters or so between the two. So yeah, there are two cenotes very, very close there. But that's connected to a whole bunch of other ones. It's amazing there.
And the other half of her question, what is your most constricted cave dive and what is the length of it?
What do you mean by constricted? Small or?
Yeah, small.
I occasionally get, I'm trying to think what the most would be the most. I mean, you tend to sort of wiggle, and if you can get through, you get through, and if you can't get through, then you sort of don't. It tends to be tends to only be restriction for a relatively small amount of time. But there are places in sort of bedding planes where they're a lot longer. I will go and do sort of wiggly tank off side mount stuff occasionally, but it's certainly not my favourite. I much prefer big caves where I can sort of not have to come off the trigger of the scooter at all, and just sort of fly past beautiful stuff. But the length of restrictions can vary really. Some can be quite short, and most of them are. But certainly when you get a long bedding plane, you can get them sort of 10, 20 meters of wriggle, which obviously can be quite. If you sort of halfway through, you go, oh, hang on, and get a bit stuck. That can be quite nerve wracking.
Yeah.
But that's a sort of quite advanced, beyond that, you don't have to go in those places. And I think as I get older, I tend to sort of be a little bit more circumspect and look at places, go, maybe not there today. Only got stuck a few times.
From Hein, with so many awesome caves around you, do you still travel to dive caves elsewhere, and where would you go?
We do. I'd like to go back once all this opens up again. I'd like to go back to Florida. There's some amazing caves there. We've just had some friends, our first guests for a while. They're coming down from Bahamas. The caves there are beautiful. I'd like to go there and dive those with Brian Kakuk. But I think I'd like to go back to Florida because there's a lot of stuff that I haven't done. And they're quite a lot deeper and there's much more flow. So although they're probably not as beautiful and decorated as the Mexican caves, and there certainly aren't as many of them, the sort of slightly colder water and the flow is a little bit challenging, which I quite nice to dive in a different environment. Although one of the things I really miss is wrecks. Actually, I mean, before I used to do sort of pretty much equally caves and wrecks before I was doing this professionally, and I haven't done a wreck dive in years. And I really love, certainly with a naval connection, and I'm a sort of big student of naval history. I love going some wreck diving in. So I think I'd probably, if I was going to do my next dive holiday, I think a wreck diving rather than a cave holiday might be good.
All right, sorry, this is jumping around as more questions are coming in. From Tanya, Lanny, have you ever dived in the Chinoya caves in Zimbabwe? Not much of a cave system, but deep, deep, deep and stunningly clear.
No, I'd love to. We have, and I see there's one about the Bermansgaten comments as well. We had Don Shirley was out here last year. I sort of tried some comes every year or two, and we did some really nice diving with Don. Slightly nerve-wracking. I'd sort of crossed him over onto the SF2 and then trying to do a crossover as a relatively inexperienced rebreather instructor to somebody who's done like sort of 30 different units and wrote the book, which was quite kind of interesting, but he lovely, really had a lovely time. And I'd love to come and do some of those deep caves in South Africa. I think the problem is convincing my wife to let her alone with all the dogs and the business to run. Maybe combine it with the Lions tour next year would be fantastic.
Nice. Right, from Gabby. Do you get the sulfur type build-up cenotes with river-in-river type look in Mexico with lots of haloclines?
Yeah. So that's the hydrogen sulfide layer. So we tend not to get that very much in the caves because there's often, they tend to be relatively low flow, the caves in Mexico. There is still a little bit of flow. Where you get them is the pit, which is one of the ones I talked about. You get a sort of slightly wispy, cloudy hydrogen sulfide effect. And what this is caused by is where you get organic matter falling into, tend to be a sinkhole rather than a cave, a sort of sinkhole cenote. And the bacteria break the organic matter down and they excrete this hydrogen sulfide. Where it's really cool, which you probably, the pictures that often get shared, is a place called Angelita, which is just a closed sinkhole that goes down to about 60 meters or so. But at 30 meters, there's this 2 meter thick, very, very just cloudy layer that no light gets through. And it looks like a really weird sort of Wes Craven move, and you get some amazing photography happening there. So yeah, you do, but it tends not to be in the caves, but they tend to be in the sinkholes. But Angelita is just a completely unique dive, stunning place. That's a really good place, and we do do a little bit of our tech training there as well because it's just a perfect place to do that. But that layer is just really spooky and just an amazing dive.
Nice.
You went there, Karen, didn't you? Did you get a dive in Angelita?
We tried to, but we didn't manage.
Okay, we'll have to do that next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. From Yaku and Mornay, what is Mexico doing to protect these cave systems?
Yeah, I'd probably say not enough. It's like anywhere in the world where you've got a large tourism-based economy. There's always going to be a tension between the people who are trying to make money and the people who are trying to conserve the environment. So I talked about Somos Los Cenotes, our friends who have this environmental advocacy group, trying to sort of say, look, if you build a resort on top of this, then it's going to destroy these cave systems. It's also where you get your water from, and it's really important we preserve that. There was a plan to put an airport in a few years ago, and unfortunately that's gone because that would have just completely wiped out most of Saskatchewan. The thing we're worried about at the moment, apart from the sort of usual sort of development of new resorts and new sort of towns, is there's the Maya train that's going to be coming down from Cancun to Tulum and then down south towards the Belize border. But we're really worried about how that's going to actually impact on the cave systems because, vibrations, etc. This week there was the road collapsed, the 307 collapsed into a cave.
Wow.
And someone actually mapped it as well. So they just sort of jumped in. There's some order, and then they put a little map on Facebook, which made me laugh. But yeah, it's like a sponge where we are. So the impact of having a train rattling over some of these cave systems could cause collapses, could do all sorts of things. So it's always a worry, and we do what we can as the cave diving community to try and educate the developers and the government. But it's often with the corruption here, is often a bit of an uphill struggle.
All right, from Hein, your most interesting find in a cave?
We don't sort of tend to sort of find things and take them away. There's a whole bunch of places where you see bones. There's a really cool place, not been for a while actually, because access is a bit more difficult there, but you drop down into this great big pit, and there's a huge giant sloth bones, and this thing is clearly, prehistoric animal has clearly sort of walked in, fallen down the hole, been unable to get out, and then sort of 12 to 18,000 years ago, when the ice age finished and the sea level rose, the bones were clearly preserved and now sort of flooded. So you see a lot of very, very cool bones. That's pretty nice. Nice.
All right, from Oti, what was the riskiest moment that you've had while diving, and how did you handle the situation?
I'm trying to think, actually. I mean, you did a few things sort of happen, like, had to sort of rebreather loop floods, and just finding yourself going in and you just sort of get stuck and then go, and then you're in zero viz and you're stuck and you're like, hang on, I'm going to have to wiggle a bit to find my way out. So that happens every so often. But I mean, Jill has done some amazing things. A huge, really good friend, and she's a fantastic diver. So probably not anywhere near the level of crazy stuff's happened to me. I tend to sort of think, going back to the stuff we were talking about with Gareth and the human factors, I try and put myself, the team around me, and make sure that you're relatively comfortable with stuff going wrong. So I sort of can't think of anything that went that badly wrong where it wasn't like, okay, well, that's happened. Well, there's the consequence of that. I know how to solve that, and just keeping calm, relying on your training, relying on the team. And whilst for a little while you go, no, this isn't good. You tend to be able to sort of solve it and then sort of get out, really. It's embarrassment, actually. I normally, if I sort of find myself in zero viz or going somewhere sort of not very well diving, you're sort of wedged in, and no, this will be embarrassing if I can't get out here. But you tend to ensure that your training is and the team around you is sufficient, that it becomes a sort of an interesting anecdote rather than actually an accident.
Right, from Tanya. Lanny, is the water quality in the caves you mostly dive generally poor or polluted by local groundwater?
It tends to be pretty nice, actually. One of the things that the MCP, the Mexico Cave Exploration Project, do is there's a lot of water sampling going on. So we can actually say, look, they're starting to get some sewage in these caves. So we tend to dive. We had a problem where they put a new marina in just up the coast, and that basically backed up. There was some sewage backing up into one of the cave systems, so we didn't dive that for a while. I know that the friends who've been trying to get some exploration done in the caves, there's a whole lot of caves underneath town, underneath Tulum, and apparently my friend Robbie, who did the connection between to create the biggest underwater cave, when they connected Sakaktum with the Dotoko system. When those guys have been in to do some exploration under Tulum, they get really ill and horrible, just flu-like symptoms, and probably worse than coronavirus. Really, really bad, because it's just so polluted.
Right, from Gabby, incredible imagery, super informative presentation. Thanks very much.
Oh no, thanks, Gabby. Good to.
Yeah, carry on.
No worries. No, thank you.
Lanny, from our side, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the questions here. I really appreciate your time, and definitely thank George for the George, listen to me, Tom, for those images. Fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys, nice to see you all. Hope you get through this interesting situation, and it'd be lovely to see somebody out here for some excellent diving once you're all finished. So I know just before the presentation, just speaking to Karen about maybe getting a sort of Raid South Africa trip out here. You know, PJ's a good friend of ours, and also we've got Steve Lewis, who's the raid training director, who comes down here all the time. And I know Steve and PJ and I sat down together to talk about some changes to the raid cave training program when last time we were all together last year. So you know, we're really well set up to do a to sort of get some really sort of good raid training here. So you know, it'd be lovely to see some people once all this is over.
Absolutely, it will be. Yeah, there's a lot of interest from the South African diving community in general. So hopefully we can get some divers trained up and send them across to you. Thank you.
Yeah, super cool, but lovely to see you. Okay, guys.
Awesome.
Best of luck, and see you again. Bye.
Your dogs. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.